Hello, Fusion Nation. My name is Alex Fuse, the host of Fusion News. Today is November 21st, 2017, and I have another big show for you right now. I am on the phone with Bryan Campbell, CBS sports reporter for the WWE. Bryan, how are we doing tonight?
Oh, doing great, Alex. Big time to be a wrestling fan right now, right?
Yeah.
So much going on, good
Mhm.
stuff.
Well, of course, I bet you're talking about the main event on Monday Night Raw last night. Roman Reigns is now a Grand Slam champion. He defeated The Miz in the main event of Monday Night Raw last night to become the Intercontinental Champion. What was your reaction when you saw that Roman Reigns is a new Intercontinental Champion?
I thought it was good booking, and I thought it did well to save the episode would be a bad term. It was a pretty good episode with some equal highs and lows, but it certainly put a ribbon on it. And I think when you're coming off such a loaded Survivor Series card on Sunday night that delivered all the way until that ending that, really gave a polarizing reaction to have Monday night end in a way that everyone was happy with is always a good thing. I mean, it's sometimes one moment can save a card at the end. And I think it was interesting, to see that IC belt around Roman's waist and realize that for as big of a star as he's been, he's never worn that belt, which has so much history. So, cool moment, but bigger picture wise, Reigns versus Miz is a hot money feud that they sort of teased at the beginning of the Shield reunion a couple months back. And if this is the direction that we're heading, on the build toward Royal Rumble, this is going to do great stuff because obviously it's like Reigns, the ultimate good guy who most of the time the people boo, against the Miz, the ultimate heel who most of the time is getting, the cheers from the crowd. And there's a lot of fun things you can do when you have that kind of dynamic.
Mhm. Well, Bryan, I hope that this is wrong, but it looks like The Miz is going to be off TV for a few weeks as he's going to be filming the next Marine movie in the franchise I read today. So
Wow.
maybe, well, that's the reason why that they decided to take the belt off of The Miz. So,
Well, that's interesting because he was going to have eventually with his wife Murray's pregnant, he's likely going to have some time off, for paternal duty. So you wondered when the belt would come off him. But I think at the very least, what they held together last night, when if you take into account the entire 3 hours, was that this feud, the overarching feud of the Shield versus the Miz and the Bar, that seems to be still in place and seems to still be going. Which would allow Miz to sort of pop out and then pop back in.
right, yeah, I definitely agree. Well, you mentioned the night before, and I really enjoyed Survivor Series up until that main event. I wasn't a huge fan of having guys like Triple H, like Kurt Angle, like John Cena still in the last mix of the match. I love those guys. But let's be honest, I love Bobby Roode. I love, Shinsei Nakamura. I love everyone in the match. But it's just like I want to see these young guys really put on a show and show, hey, we're the people in charge of this company now, not the people that were in charge 10 years ago. And now they're back in charge, it seems like.
Yeah, I mean, there was a lot to not like about how that traditional 5-on-5 match ended. One of those things is certainly what you said there. Of the final four, three of them are over the age of 46. I mean, and the ones who are supposed to be, quote unquote, have next on the main roster, you mentioned of Finn Balor, Shinsuke, they were basically marginalized with how they were eliminated in that match. Cena was used almost as, kind of what he's been used as a lot over the last few months, which is just a ratings grab, no real storyline tied into him. But I almost was more upset, about 3 to 4 other ways about how that ending played out. And for me, the biggest one was, WWE so loaded that card and really so overloaded that match with stars that they had a lot of outs on how they wanted to end that card. And some of my disappointment is, not me, the journalist or the critical reviewer. It's me, the fan, who sat through a, 4.5, 5 hour card, whatever it was, and really enjoyed it and was on the verge of saying, wow, this was this better than WrestleMania? I mean, at the moment, at that time, it kind of seemed like hyperbole, but it was such an entertaining card. You want to see it go the distance and end on the brightest, biggest note it can. And what they ended up doing was, like I mentioned, so many outs on the board, was essentially picked the least interesting way to end it. Not just that, but one that would draw the ire and almost anger fans who the whole last 3 hours had been on social media saying, this card's amazing, top to bottom, everything's great. And it's like Kurt Angle versus Triple H, if that's the direction they go at WrestleMania 34, and it certainly seems that way. Look, it's a nice match. It's a nice idea. It's a nice feud. But it really wasn't all that interesting when you compare it to, the Sami Zayn, Kevin Owens run-in, which they seem to sort of use and almost waste in the middle of that match. Or, I didn't know if Daniel Bryan was going to come back. Would Kane come back? Would Jason Jordan interfere in the match? And instead, we just had the continuation from what we saw earlier that week on Raw, which is we already know. Triple H hates Kurt Angle. I didn't really learn anything, and it just felt, again, like too much Triple H at the wrong time. I don't see how you could have watched the ending on Sunday night and been like, oh, I'm down with that. That's good booking. I just don't see how you could do that, and that's disappointing to see. You give them credit. They came back on Raw last night. To a certain degree, they patched it together. They kind of improved on the situation. But I'm going to look back at Survivor Series 2017, most likely ahead of next year's Survivor Series, and I'm going to be saying that card had a chance to be something special. And I think as a fan, you want to watch a show that from start to finish is special. You want to have said you saw it, and you want to really enjoy that experience.
Mm-hmm. Bryan, I love to read the dirt sheets, and of course you said maybe you'll see a Daniel Bryan return. And when I read the dirt sheets, there's possibilities saying that he loves to come back, and they've been teasing a return from Daniel Bryan the past few years, of course, when he was on Talking Smack with The Miz. There's always been this tease about Daniel Bryan returning. And then that whole main event match, I'm like, this is it. This is when Daniel Bryan returns from his injury and comes out, and this is going to be fantastic. And even to go off on last night, when we had Alexa Bliss in the ring and every single diva was coming out, I'm like, here comes Paige. And then they start the Fatal 4-Way match. I'm like, where's Paige? And then, of course, she did end up coming out. But it's just like it's frustrating to a fan where they tease these moments and it never happens. And maybe it's just me from reading the dirt sheets, and maybe I shouldn't be, but it's just I expect big moments. And when big moments don't happen, especially in the main event of Survivor Series, people get disappointed.
They do, and it doesn't have to be their biggest swerve possible. Because look, Survivor Series, when done right, does start WrestleMania season. Some people think that Royal Rumble is the start of WrestleMania season at the end of January. Well, that's like the sped up start. It really starts on Survivor Series. And like I sort of said, you don't want to leave Survivor Series with your biggest note being, oh, now we're definitely getting Triple H and Kurt Angle at Mania. Like, you want something more. And I think that, everything that went right about the Jason Jordan angle to start Monday Night Raw this week, why couldn't that have closed the show on Sunday night? We feel like we know from the teases they're giving us that Jordan's going to turn heel and he's going to turn on his father, Kurt Angle. And that's a juicy storyline, especially if it's, Triple H coaching him in the corner and the Mania match ends up being Kurt Angle versus Jason Jordan. For all we know, we may still get there. And sometimes as a wrestling fan, it's hard to stay patient in that. I just don't like leaving a major card, especially a major Big Four pay-per-view, angry at what I saw, and that sometimes that's in the eye of the beholder as a fan. But like I always say, Alex, whatever I'm talking about, whatever my favorite show is, most of those shows are 1 hour a week. WWE, to be a fan, to be a journalist on this level, you got to watch 7, 8, 9, 10 hours a week. When you're putting in that kind of time, you naturally want the rewards. Sometimes that's the bottom line.
Yeah, because Stone Cold said so, right?
Exactly. There you go. Exactly.
Well, of course, you mentioned Jason Jordan, and then, of course, it seemed like the ending of Survivor Series was to put over the monster among men, Braun Strowman, even more. And then you talk about paying back the fan. What do they get on Monday Night Raw? Kane coming out of nowhere and basically destroying Braun Strowman. So this is another frustrating moment as a fan. And a journalist as well, covering, like you said, 10 hours a week of WWE, having this great reward about seeing Braun Strowman decimate Triple H, future Hall of Famer, and then, of course, Kane come back on Monday Night Raw and destroy Braun Strowman.
It almost gets to the point where you question, like, is WWE trolling us? They have to know that last Monday night on Raw, when Braun Strowman power slammed Kane through the ring and the match, the 3-hour show just ends on that moment. You're like, really? We got to go through this again? In 2017, Kane's in the main event again? Really? The reaction of the crowd was dead. The reaction on social media was get this off of my screen, and they go back to the well one more time, and it's at a laughable moment where, like I said, you're wondering, are they trolling us? Are they trying to draw our ire? Because Monday night opened with a hot segment of Raw where Stephanie McMahon comes out, Triple H comes out, you got Kurt Angle in his face standing up for his family. Jason Jordan runs in, and I'm starting to think, are we going to get Triple H versus Kane versus Braun Strowman tonight? Are we going to get Jason Jordan versus Triple H tonight? The possibilities start going through your head. And while the announcement of, no, it's going to be Jordan versus Strowman was a step down, it still fit into that overlaying story. And that story, they spent 2 hours building up. Every time they're about to go to commercial, there's another backstage segment. When they put that kind of time into something, you get drawn in. And they had us drawn in until about 10:20 p.m. Eastern time, when that's got to be really bad booking, because here comes Kane. Alex, at this point, are they trying to get us? That's the only question I have right now, because nobody wants this. I don't care if you're the biggest nostalgic fan and love that it's the 20th anniversary of Kane's debut. How are you not killing Braun Strowman when he has such a high like he had on Sunday night, and then Monday's got to again job out to this guy?
Well, not only that, they basically destroyed Braun Strowman's career before WrestleMania or earlier this year. And now they have done a tremendous job of resurrecting Braun Strowman. Actually, I think this might be one of their biggest resurrections. They've tried this with Bray Wyatt. They've tried this with multiple other superstars, and they failed at trying to create a superstar out of a guy that they failed with booking. And now we're back to square one, where you have, Braun Strowman destroying Triple H, who was over the age of 45. And now Kane comes back, and he's almost 50 years old, and now Kane's destroying Braun Strowman. It just doesn't make sense.
No, it doesn't. And if the long-term storyline here, and I'm not pulling this from a dirt sheet, just thinking as a fan, what are they doing with Kane? What's the end goal? If the end goal is that Kane is reunited with Triple H in some sort of authority, and that him coming out to get Strowman is just part of that overall feud, it's not that it doesn't make sense. It's that you had to annoy and almost anger me as a fan to get me there. And that's just not good booking, right? I mean, I hate when I don't like the worst kind of WWE booking is will lower your expectations, will annoy, and then we'll finally give you what you want at the end. That's the Daniel Bryan story, right?
Right.
And it worked because Daniel Bryan was so special, and the moment that we finally got at WrestleMania 30 was so worth it. But I don't want to go through that emotional ride. Whatever happened to just doing what's right? They always say, what's best for business. How about what's best for getting fans excited to tune in each week and not tune in with a frown and a growl? Let's tune in excited because we know we're going to see something new, something different. And at the very least this week on Raw, Paige gave us that. And I know you're probably going to transition to that, but that was something that felt fresh and new. And something like Kane is the exact opposite.
Yeah, like you just said, during that women's match between the 4 women superstars, and of course you hear Paige's music, and then she says, "I'm not alone," and then it was just that moment, like you said, where this is a fresh piece into this women's division that really has dealt with bad booking. It seems like ever since the draft back after WrestleMania this year.
Yeah, a lot of people on social media after I sort of celebrated this were like, what are you celebrating? This is already an overloaded division on Raw. You're just adding more names to it. Well, here's what I'm celebrating. You just summed it up. The booking is just not good for the women on Raw or SmackDown consistently. The booking in NXT the last 3 years, great. You go back and watch those NXT TakeOver cards from 2015, the Four Horsewomen. That's just hot fire. The booking is incredible, match to match, feud to feud. We don't get that on the main roster, and it felt like that last night when Paige showed up. Obviously, because she's been gone a year and a half. She's bringing up a new faction of 2 girls that hadn't been seen yet on the main roster, and to be honest, really hadn't done much on NXT over the last year. To begin with, they've been sort of bit players. It was the violence, the way that they told the story, really felt fresh and new. When the majority of the women's booking on Raw is comical. Let's be really honest, right? It's it's Mickey James calling Alexa Bliss biscuit butt. You know, it's like if one joke seems to get over once, it feels like WWE goes back to that well, where this felt like fighting, like anger, like aggression. And while, yes, there's room for comedy in pro wrestling, no question about it, when you go back to what the core is, people not liking each other and settling it through violence, you know, that's going to connect with people on a deeper level.
Mm-hmm. I definitely agree. Well, Bryan, before we wrap up this Fusion News episode, I have to ask you, what would be one thing you want the WWE to do before WrestleMania to get you super excited for WrestleMania this upcoming year?
That's an interesting question. I almost want to say it doesn't take much. Like, for as much as I can be a complainer, as much as I can be someone who takes WWE to task when the booking angers and annoys me, I kind of just want this. I want WWE to commit to building stars. And I know that sounds kind of crazy because right now there feels like they have a gratuitous amount of really talented people. But we know they don't have outside of Lesnar, Cena, and sometimes Roman Reigns sniffs that level, they don't have crossover stars. And I think the big reason why is because it's this 50-50 booking era. And anytime something good happens to somebody, like, you know, Finn Balor going over AJ Styles at TLC in a fantastic one-night match, what has Finn Balor done since then? He's constantly lost. Like, that right there is a microcosm of the overall problem in my eyes. I want to enter WrestleMania not by bringing in names from the past or Kenny Omega from New Japan or all these bells and whistles. I want them to take what they already have, which is an incredibly loaded roster because that feeder system NXT is so good. And I want them to let these stars be stars and pick out the 4, 5, or 6 guys and say, these are our guys. And you know what? Book them strong. Don't let them lose regular TV matches that don't mean anything. There's a lot of ways you can tell stories without needing to do that. And have us enter WrestleMania with each match and each feud really feeling like it matters in the storyline, in their careers, in who's going to win that match. Sometimes going back to the basics of that and really building up real heat because the competition inside the ring is supposed to matter. That's what I want more than anything. You know, it's like, I'm not saying, man, we got to go get Kenny Omega and we got to put him against AJ. Well, it'd be great, right? I'm not saying, you know, make this dream match happen. I'm saying take the guys that you have and really, really make the storylines juicy and make them work. And sometimes that just means getting out of their own way. And as a fan, you want every week to tune in because you know you're going to see something different. And Alex, you know, in WWE history, sometimes we only get that when there's real competition pushing them. Right now, we don't really have real competition pushing them, but sometimes I think WWE just got to look in the mirror and push themselves to get to that level.
Mm-hmm. And if, Bryan, if we were in front of 40,000 WWE fans, you would get the biggest pop of the year, and everyone's chanting yes like Dana Bryan. And I want to say thank you for taking the time to come on my show today and talk some sense, of course, and, you know, give your predictions about what you want to see in the next coming months in the WWE. Thank you again, Bryan, for coming on my show. And where can the fans follow you on Twitter and also listen to your podcast?
Yes, Twitter, B Campbell CBS, and check out the In This Corner with Bryan Campbell podcast. You know, 2-3 times a week we give you MMA, boxing, pro wrestling, really good interviews, all the stuff you would need. Fuse Master, thank you so much for having me on the show. Best of luck.
Thank you. I appreciate it. All right, Fuse Nation, just heard from Bryan Campbell talk some WWE, all about the future of wrestling. Thank you again for watching. 4 shows tomorrow. Gonna be a great day. And 2 more days till Turkey Day. Thank you for watching, and I will be seeing you very soon. Have a great day.